Super excited for everyone to be here today, and we're really glad to spend some time talking about a really important topic, the keys to creating a safe ministry environment. And so, thank you so much for being here. We are, thrilled to have a couple experts with us as well who are going to be sharing their experience. I'm going to let them introduce themselves. Before we do, my name is Scott Holthouse. I am the Senior Content Marketing Manager here at Ministry Brands. Before jumping in here, I spent about 15 plus years in ministry as a pastor in a variety of contexts, church plants, mega churches, everything in between. And so love the church, love church leaders, and certainly love helping create safe environments to continue to love and shepherd people. We are also super excited to have on Ryan Carter today. Ryan, do you want to give us just a little 30-second bio?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Scott. I've been here for 17 years now as of last week. So before joining Ministry Brands through Protect My Ministry, I was also involved in ministry, similar church plants, worship teams, lots of different areas of ministry within the church. And so you really, definitely a passion for me as well, a heart to combine, my being able to help provide good solutions that help the church with also being a part of the church. And so it's an honor to be here and be able to share kind of some of the things that I've learned throughout my time here with Protect My Ministry and Ministry Brands, and with the people that I love. So, and doing the things that we all enjoy. So thank you for having me.
Yeah, love it. We're also really excited to have with us Josh Denhart. Josh, you want to do the same? Give us a little 30-second bio.
You bet. My name is Josh Denhart. I'm a former high school chemistry teacher turned children's pastor. Served in all kinds of different ministry contexts, in student ministry, camping ministry, full-time for a really long time, over a decade as a children's pastor. And now I lead a ministry called Lead Ministry, which is really a set of training resources, courses, coaching to help ministry leaders stay organized, really make the most of their ministry life, and of course, avoid ministry burnout. And so we're super excited. I'm super excited to be here. This is a huge passion area for me in terms of keeping kids safe. And we got a special surprise later that we'll share about.
Yeah, we are looking forward to it. Well, hey, just as we jump into a couple notes, one, we will be recording this. We are recording this, and so we are grateful to be able to send this out as well for anyone who might have missed it or want to watch again. We have a ton of content that I think is going to be so helpful. So it might be the type of thing you want to see again. And also, we would invite you to send in any questions, whether that's through Q&A, even in the chat, because we're hoping to have some time at the end where we can spend some time answering some questions. So just a little overview of where we are going to go today. We're going to talk about why it's important to have a protection plan and policy. Why does this matter? What are some myths, some best practices? We're going to spend the bulk of our time talking about 5 ways to improve child safety at your church. And these are both a combination of philosophy, things to think about, but also some really tangible action steps, things that you can do, steps that you can take. We're going to talk about Protect My Ministry. What is that? How does that serve the church? What are some ways in which it can integrate with some of the other tools you're using ultimately to help your church grow in safety? We are going to talk a little bit about Lead Ministry, and Josh is going to unpack a little of some of the exciting thing that he was just mentioning. And so we are pumped for that. And then we'll talk about some next steps, some follow-up, some resources, and go from there. So just jumping in, if you aren't aware, April is Child Abuse Prevention Month. And it's important for us to really jump in and talk about this as churches and church leaders for a number of reasons. You'll see some statistics there on the screen, and you can read through those. But I think one of the things that's so important is we are entrusted with some of the most precious things that are people don't have, but that are true in people's lives, which is children and people that they are looking to love, shepherd. And so when they entrust them into our care, it's so important to have a culture of safety and to have things in place that lead to safe environments, ultimately, again, to love and shepherd those kids. And so it's important for us to tackle this topic. And there's so much about it. Both of our experts here have spent a lot of time thinking about this. And so would love to just hear some of your initial thoughts as well as you think through why is it important to not only talk about this once, but to kind of have this ongoing conversation. Ryan, do you want to kick us off?
Yeah, absolutely. And so it's interesting because I know that in the church world in particular, we don't go into ministry with the thought of, I want to become an abuse prevention specialist. I want to become a background check specialist. And what's happened a lot over the past 20, 25 years in particular is there's been this cultural shift within the church. And I think it's kind of one of those good and not good situations where we've become significantly more aware of the environment we find ourselves, but we've gotten there through a rocky path, right? And so we saw, especially in the late 90s, early 2000s, with the Catholic Church and what was happening there with things coming to light, and what we should do differently. And I think what we're doing and what we're trying to do is learn from the mistakes of others as opposed to learning from our own mistakes. And unfortunately, some of that's happened very, very well, and some of it hasn't. And so we're starting to see some of the same things coming to light in other areas of the Protestant church and in other areas of ministry. And it's incredibly important to know that the church is a target, and it's one of those things where we have a very challenging job, because on the one hand, we want to be a welcoming place of grace and wholeness and restoration, right? Like that's part of our hearts. That's part of our ministry is you want to restore and see people come to the fullness of who God's created them to be. And that's all well and good, and it is the commission of Christ on our lives. On the other hand, you have people whose only desire when they come into the church is to cause harm. And as Jesus said, you've got sheep among wolves, and our sheep, we have a responsibility to care for and to flock and shepherd and oversee. And it's hard because as shepherds, sometimes we don't want to hit anyone with the staff that's not a wolf. And so there's this very difficult balance of, where do I draw the line between we want to restore and minister, and you need to get out of the church because you're not here for the right purposes. We wish you the best as you move on. So there's a tough challenge that we want to navigate and try to kind of walk those lines.
Yeah, absolutely. Josh, I'd love if you could speak to just some of your experience in ministry. I mean, everything that you've done and seen. What are some of the reasons why you think it's really important, again, to have this ongoing conversation?
Ryan said something very interesting, that a church is a target. And I want to say that I agree. I would say that the church is a soft target, and the church is almost a sitting duck. Now, here I was, a former high school chemistry teacher who loved the Lord, loved the scriptures, and had a lot of volunteer involvement at my church. And they said, hey, here's the reins. You're now in charge of the kids ministry at this church that was rather big. And one of my very first initiatives was to partner with Protect My Ministry and institute an across the board background check system. And while everyone was behind this, I did get some pushback. The other thing that I want to say briefly is, in my time there, because of the partnership that I had with Protect My Ministry, we discovered a very small handful of situations that could have been catastrophic for our church. And Ryan said it well, we need to be an inviting church, but that doesn't mean that you have to be insecure. You can be inviting and yet be a secure church. And later on in this webinar, we're going to talk about some very practical ways to set this up in a manner that is high confidentiality, but also leads to the safest environment that we can possibly have.
Yeah. Well, I'd love to jump in. You mentioned background checks and partnering with Protect My Ministry and that sort of thing. And Ryan, I'll kind of toss this to you, but there are some myths, I think, that are often believed, and I know even at a time in ministry, I thought this just knowing, oh yeah, a background check is a background check, right? All of them are the same, but that's not quite the case, right? Can you kind of expound, help us understand that?
Yeah, absolutely. And so I think the first thing that I'll say, and Josh and I had this conversation a month or so ago, where one of the most common things that we hear as we talk to churches and others is that there's this belief that somewhere in the ether exists this database where all criminal records are housed. And background check companies, they just tap into it. They're all using essentially the same stuff. So there's not that big of a difference between what this company will do versus what that company will do. And that's not at all true. There's not one central database where all criminal records live. There are literally thousands and thousands of data sources where lots of criminal data is housed all over the country and at different levels of organization. And so there are not only the same types of data, but the processes by which you search it. And so there's so many different levels that make not one background check, one size fits all. It doesn't exist. And so how you should do a background check ranges not only from what kind of position you're hiring for, but where you're located geographically, how that area stores and reports records. And there's just so much to know that nobody on this call, except for maybe me, should even bother with, because it's like, man, it's just too much. And I've just kind of done it by proxy. Trust me, when I first started this, I had the exact same thought, which is like, oh man, no problem. Just come in, talk to churches, sell this background check stuff. And the owners at the time were like, oh, slow down there, big chief. Let me slow your roll. But I just wanted to get on the phone and be like, you got to get safe. You got to protect yourself. And they're like, you don't know what you're talking about. We got to fix you real quick. And so after a couple of weeks of like digging into a small pamphlet of, if you're in here, I was like, oh my gosh, this is insane. And so I had no idea. And it very quickly became an understanding of mine. This is your job to know. You need to be the expert, because the people you're talking to, they're not, and they don't need to be. They just need to have a trusted partner that can give them good advice and good counsel.
Yeah.
Because it's not a fair expectation to expect a church member or a church staff member to just pick up the reins and know all the best practices. That's just not, it's not reality.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think calling out kind of the needed partnership is so important. One of the other things that I know sometimes is a belief is, hey, we kind of built this policy, this process. We built it a couple years ago, 5 years, 20 years ago, whatever it is. Built it once, we're good to go now. Once safe, always safe. Josh, can you kind of help us understand why that's not essentially true, and that's not really the way that we should kind of proceed forward?
Well, first of all, I must say that Ryan continues to appropriately dispel the very myths that I hold. And I don't know if it was Ryan back, 20 years ago, when I was setting up this background check process for my church, that I had to be schooled, and I had to learn that we were going to be doing background checks on a repeating cycle. And so it was, we did a set of background checks, and then we set up I believe it was an automated system with Protect My Ministry that would just re-up everybody right on time. And the piece with that is, I don't know what happened last month with every one of my volunteers.
Yeah.
That's first. I was at a church of about 2,000 people. That's just not something that I can keep track of. And by the way, if someone was doing something nefarious, they likely don't want me to know that.
Yep.
But I'll tell you, we stumbled upon some things that would make the paint peel in your church office.
Yeah.
And listen, Ryan is right. I needed a trusted source that I could lean into. By the way, I just got to give a quick shout out to those who do my taxes. It's just too complicated for me. I'm never going to do my own taxes. And guess what? Background checks are far more complicated than meets the eye. I needed a trusted source whose full-time job is to sort through all of those details. And I rested securely with what Protect My Ministry did.
Yeah. No, that's a great call out. And I do want to just kind of jump into some of the bulk of what we are going to spend our time talking about, because I think both of those things that you guys just talked about, we're going to expound on further as we go through 5 ways to improve children's safety at your church. Now, just a reminder for everybody here, go ahead and submit questions as they come up. We're going to hopefully have some time at the end to address those. So whether it's through Q&A, whether it's through the chat, we'll capture it both ways. Please share those questions. We would love to answer those. And the goal here, just a little housekeeping. We're hoping maybe to make, get through this in 18 to 20 minutes. So we'll kind of keep some pace going. There's a lot of info. And so we're actually going to be sending out this slide deck as well. So if you don't get everything written down, if you want to review things after, don't worry, we'll be sending that out after the webinar today. But the first one we're going to jump into, the 5 ways, is number 1, conduct thorough background checks. Now, we just talked about the fact that all background checks aren't the same, that there is more to it. And so, Ryan, would you kind of jump in and just talk through what does it mean to conduct a thorough background check?
Yeah, it's a really good question. So I think that word thorough is a key differentiator, right? And so, because you can do a background check that is not thorough, and then there's a way to do it that is. And so we've changed even ourselves over the past 2 or 3 years, where if you look at Protect My Ministry in 2020, so let's just say after 2021, we don't want to talk about 2020. That was the year of which I do not speak here. There was something floating around the ether that was causing havoc all over the world. But 2021, the way that we did background checks was a lot of database driven product. And so what we've seen happen from our national criminal database, which is very comprehensive, by the way, it covers the vast majority of the country. It's got over 1 billion criminal records in it. We own and maintain it. And so it's a great database. But where it's gotten more challenging over the last several years is the quality of the data that the original sources are reporting up to us has degraded significantly. And so what I mean by that very practically is, if you have a case file with my name on it, for example, you've got your first name, last name, date of birth, address, height, weight, sex, race, all that stuff lives in a case file. So that is housed at an original source of truth, usually a county court. That record used to be uploaded in its entirety to some sort of central database. Well, because of privacy laws and consumer protection and GDPR and all these regulations that have happened over the past few years, you're getting just a fraction of that information that gets uploaded to a database. So you're getting maybe first and last name, but not the date of birth, or you're getting partial date of birth or the year of birth or whatever. Well, the problem is, if the background check company is using filters that are looking for exact matches on name, exact matches on date of birth, and all that information doesn't get transposed from the source to the database, you're going to get back a no record found on someone who very well may have a record. And so it's gotten significantly more challenging to use a database driven product. And so we as an organization have gotten away from that, where we no longer sell it as a database only product. We still have some stragglers who haven't quite caught up to, like, hey, and we've sent out emails and phone calls and like, hey, it's not a matter of if you miss a record. If you use this product as a standalone, eventually you are going to miss a record. So the way we mitigate that is we start adding a lot more go to the source type searches. And now we're adding multiple counties and multiple layers of searching to say we're going to cast that wide net still. We're still going to look all 50 state sex offenders, all 50 states for at least Department of Corrections data. Well, at least 40 out of the 50. So if they've spent time in a prison, there's a good chance we're going to find that kind of information. So you're still going to get the really, really big stuff. But if you're not looking deeper, there's a very good chance that you can miss information that's not a felony conviction necessarily, but something that you still very much need to be aware of, either because it's still serious, or it's a great opportunity for a counseling discussion. So there's all kind of things. So that was a lot, and I apologize because I think I went longer than I should have there. But
no, you're good.
I'll rein it back a little bit and just say, know that a database only product, a $7, $8, $9, $10 back, like those days really are, like, if you want to go that route, just Google your person, because you're not really doing much different. You're paying for a glorified Google search, and it really does create some risk that we wouldn't recommend anybody absorb.
Yeah. Well, and that's one of the things that I think is so important too. Like you said, not all background checks are created equal.
Yeah.
But how would you know that? As I've spent my time in ministry, I would have no idea because my focus is leading, shepherding, guiding the church and its people,
That's right.
and not being an expert on background checks. So I think that that's really helpful to help kind of highlight for folks. Now we have a couple of these kind of key facts about background checks. A lot of kind of what Ryan had shared there. And one of the things that I know we do want to get to and talk about, so I'm going to kind of move from this slide again. These will be sent out, or you can kind of take a quick screenshot of this. But one of the things that we want to move to and talk about is not just background check, but what does it look like to have communication and strategy plans? What does it look like to think about these things, especially before they're needed? So, Josh, would you kind of walk us through what it looks like to create and implement really good communication strategies for safety?
Yeah. Well, for one, inside of the local church, there is the big C word, and that's confidentiality. As a pastor, I wear a hat that that needs to have a layer of confidentiality. Well, when it came to running background checks, of course, and this was new at our church, and so we had, meetings, we had communication plans, and that's all fine. When people submitted and filled out their information, it was housed in one central location where one human, her name was Valerie, she had the exclusive key to that locked file cabinet. It was confidential. However, we had a set of criterion by which Valerie would look at every single background check, and there were just but a handful that rose to the top and then made it to my desk. We called those red flags. And so this red flagged background check, then I needed to make at this point a pastoral decision. And one of these pastoral decisions was that a gentleman, it came back that he had had a statutory rape charge. And he was super eager, mind you, to volunteer in our junior high ministry. Now, time out for just a second. We have an individual who is maybe even more zealous to serve in the children's ministry or in student ministry than a normal person. That should cause a yellow flag. Why are they that eager? That's not a background check thing. That's an eyeballs and a discernment thing. But then Protect My Ministry, they gave us this insight. And so that necessitated a phone call, which necessitated me finding out that oh, yes, and it was such a big mistake. She was 17, I was 19, her dad was out to get me. Just a big misunderstanding. Well, guess what, bud? Uh, you're not going to be volunteering in the student ministry. So we had this internal plan that retained confidentiality, that had a set of criterion that would raise something up to the level of maybe needing to be looked at. And then one, but maybe two eyes would look at this and make discerning decisions.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's so helpful. Now, one thing can you just touch on, actually, as I go back to this slide, is what about talking about the plan for if something should happen, or if there is even some suspicion or something that a volunteer might feel like, I don't know, what should I do? How have you gone about kind of creating some of those either plans, processes in the case of something like that?
Yeah, we tell everybody, similar to after 9/11, right? It always said, if you see something, say something.
Yeah.
And so we certainly weren't asking our people to be, like obscenely hyper vigilant. But what we're asking is, you have the Spirit of God, and we've trained you in here's things that we simply don't do. We don't do kids sitting on laps. We don't do big frontal hugs with junior high students. And so when someone sees something like that,
Yeah.
we're asking for you to kind of just say, hey, remember our training that we had? It's like one of these things is not like the other.
Yeah.
We wanted to point that out to you. And so
Yeah.
then we take actions based on that. So it's really including everybody in part of this safety net that we're seeking to keep people bad people out
Yeah.
and good people safe.
Yeah. That's well said and succinct in kind of the goal, right? And what we're trying to do. Now, again, moving through our 5 keys here. Number 3, establish clear policies. So policies, there's a list of things that those could look like. But Ryan, I'd love to toss this to you in maybe some of the policies that you've seen in the past that have been really effective and that people should really kind of consider as they're walking through this.
Yeah. So this is the starting point. And so if you were to ask me, where do I get started, or what is the first thing to do when it comes to keeping my kids safe or protecting the church and all those things? This is number one. So you need to have clear policies, clear communication for lots of different reasons, but a couple of these things are really important for a few reasons. One is it takes subjectivity out of the equation as much as you can.
Bingo.
So where Josh was talking about how out of all the hundreds and hundreds of background checks that their church did, how many funneled up to his desk? Very, very few, because the church intentionally doesn't want to put him in a situation where he's having to make subjective decisions. You're making the policy the bad guy. You're not the bad guy. So if you have a situation where, hey, we love that you want to be involved in our church. We love that you want to be involved in the ministry. We've got these areas here where we think you'd be an awesome fit and we could really use you, whether that's, usher, sound booth, parking lot, cleanup, setup, tear down. I mean, how many volunteer positions do we have in the church? Hundreds, yeah. Right? Working with kids, nursery and children's ministry, maybe that's not the right fit. And so you want to make the policy the bad guy, not an individual person. And if you say these are disqualifying offenses, and it's not because we don't love you, it's just to protect you and to protect the church. You would say, we love alcoholics, but we're not going to meet in the bar to talk about theology with this particular person, right? And it's not, it's just applying wisdom, okay? So that's thing
Ryan, if I could jump in there, I call this thing black hat versus white hat leadership. As a pastor, I want to wear the white hat as long and as often as I can. I want to be the good guy. However, if I can have a healthy, structured policy, that policy can wear the black hat and deliver the bad news.
Right. Yep. And it also, here's the thing that it really does, that protects you in a way that you'll almost never even see the tangible results of. Let's say you are a predator. Let's say you are looking for easy entry and easy access to minors. Which of these two organizations are you going to target? You come into a Sunday school church and you're like, I'd love to volunteer. And they say, oh my God, thank you. We need volunteers. Can you start yesterday? And the barriers to entry are non-existent.
Right.
Or option 2, man, we would love to have you. Thank you so much. Hey, before you get started, here's our code of conduct. We've got a 3-month or a 6-month waiting period. We have a training onboarding. We've got criminal background screening. We've got interview process.
Yep.
Which one of these two organizations are you likely going to stay in? Just by having all of these things in place, you are literally putting a gate at the door to where a lot of the times those people, you'll never see them again. You have that initial conversation and you're like, hey, whatever happened to that guy? I don't know. And sometimes it's innocent. They move on for not that nefarious reason. But either way, having the gate in place is just absolutely critical.
Not only is it critical to keep bad people out, but let's never forget that we are wanting moms and dads to have a sense of safety.
Right.
And I had a parent one time say, you know what? This is a little bit of a pain to me, but I am more than willing to go through these hoops that you've set up, and thank you.
Yep. Yeah, one of the things I always kind of saw through the lens of in ministry was everything communicates something. So the way that we do something, the words that we use, the processes that we have, the way that we onboard volunteers, even if you step out of the safety conversation and just look at the way that we handle people who want to get connected into a small group or start serving, or that communicates value, that communicates what we value, that everything communicates something. So I think these policies, especially, even if it might feel like that, wow, this is kind of annoying, it communicates something. And I think that communication is really important.
Yes.
Now, one of those things that I think can be really upfront and clear and sort of it provides a lot of benefits, but immediately it's one that is tangible, is kind of a check-in, check-out system. Now, obviously, software platform is ideal at this stage of our technological evolution that we find ourselves in. But would love to toss this to you, actually, again, Ryan, to talk through just some of the ways that an effective check-in, check-out system can help.
Yeah, this is so incredibly important and practical. And I think most churches understand and adopt this. Now, anybody who hasn't, let me give you a few use cases of why. We live now in an age and a culture where mom and dads aren't always in the healthiest of environments, and the kids find themselves kind of torn sometimes between mom and dad, right? So we work with the mega church here locally in Tampa that had this situation come up before where mom dropped baby girl off, and she's 6 7 8 years old, and dad came to pick her up, didn't have a check-in sticker, didn't have the tag, whatever, but little girl's like, oh, that's my dad, I'm going to go with my dad. And so they're like, oh, volunteer is like, oh, well, sure, daughter, dad, go ahead. Well, they were in a huge custody battle, and he essentially kidnapped that child from church. And mom, understandably, furious, like, how could you release? And the volunteers, poor, my heart breaks for them, because they're like, she wanted to, and it's like, well, yeah, she wanted to, because she had. And so you never know what's happening with all of your congregants. And I've seen that happen sometime with me. I've got 4 kids. My youngest is 5. My oldest is 13 now. We dropped them off in the ministry, in the children's ministry area. And I didn't give the sticker to my mom. So Nana goes to pick them up. And the volunteer at the door is like, hey, they love you. You love them. That's awesome. Where's your sticker? And she didn't have it. And they're like, I cannot release. And I was just like, oh man, that was awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, so I actually went to pick up my youngest daughter, and the volunteer that morning, good friend of mine, we cycle together all the time. Family's been camping together. I mean, no questions asked. And he's like, where's your sticker? And there's no reason why, he couldn't just say, oh yeah, I know that's your daughter, but it's, hey, this is our policy. And I was not like, oh, come on, man, this is, no, I was like, absolutely, I love that. And went and grabbed the sticker for my wife, came back, got my daughter.
Well, if I could speak into this briefly, I call it the anti good old boy club.
Yeah.
And I told my volunteers, I said, I literally do not care. As we're instituting this new policy, you got to point to the black hat and go, oh man, I am so sorry. However, and you have to stick with it early on, so that people know that this isn't a good old boy club. This isn't the good old girl club and the bending of those rules. Not at all.
Yeah. I put it in the chat, but I'll echo it here. At least 3 different times I've had to go reprint my own sticker to pick up my own kid, because I put it in my Bible as a bookmark, and I shut it and I left it, and then it fell out somewhere, and I'm like, oh man.
Yeah.
And I get back there and they're like, where's your, and we've created these gigantic sticker balls of just every time you come, you take it, you slap it on. At the end of the year, they've got this gigantic sticker ball, and then we throw it at somebody, and it's fantastic.
Yeah. Yeah. So the big idea for those who are hearing this, worrying, man, how are parents going to feel? Is it going to, am I too much of a stickler? No, absolutely not. It blesses my heart when I know there's policies in place that are protecting my kids and all the kids in our church. So that is a blessing for sure. Yeah. Now, I do want to talk about, we talked about kind of policies, some of those, some of the technology, but like we talked about the myth earlier, in this webinar, it is not a create it once, you're fine, and it's there. There's some ongoing needs to be trained on what does it look like to keep a safe environment. And let's be honest, the world changes as well. And there's things that we have to consider with that. Josh, could you kind of walk us through just some of the importance of this, and maybe some advice for kind of how to do this for people?
Yeah, I would say the number one thing is top of mind. You want to have your policies top of mind. I'm not a fan of the the annual meeting where you literally do this massive shotgun approach, and you're firing everything about the curriculum, about check-in, about checkout, about safety. And it's kind of like back in the day. Remember that Lucille Ball gig, or that little routine where the chocolates are just flying out of the
Yeah.
chocolate machine, and it's actually rather humorous. But that's what's happening to our volunteers as we flood them with all of this content, and it's literally not sticking from. I mean, I have multiple degrees in education, and I can tell you that's not an effective learning strategy, right?
Right.
And so it is what I call the quick drip, right? So what I did is I created what was called training without the meeting, and it was bite-sized videos that I dripped to my people that were continuing to talk about all the important things. I may have touched on them during the annual meeting, but I was reinforcing them all throughout the year. It's training without the meeting. And as a joke, everybody, we know that research says that 90+% of people look at their phone when they're using the restroom. So I called it potty training. I'm training my people while they potty. What do you do?
I love it. I love it. Well, it is so important, and man, there's so many benefits to it, and like I said, as things change, evolve, there's new situations that it just builds that in to be able to not only train so that there is equipped volunteers, but again, when you're building a culture of safety and the fact that you're talking about it and it's ongoing and people begin to understand that's just what we do here, then it
That's right.
creates that momentum and really, I think, strengthens that culture ultimately. Now, I'd love to jump. We made it through our 5, and I just want to congratulate both of you and maybe myself as well. We kept good time, and so we're doing great. We got about 20 minutes left. We're going to have some time for Q&A, and so excited for that. But before we do, I do just want to kind of jump in a little bit further into Protect My Ministry. You know, Ryan, you shared a little bit about the background check world, right? Open the curtain a little bit. So can you kind of just walk us through a little bit around, what does it look like to optimize, to automate background checks, to provide something really thorough with Protect My Ministry?
Yeah, so a couple of things. So this is right here a walkthrough of how our monitoring system works. And so one of the evolutions of background screening has been not just doing your initial background check or an annual or every 3-year background screening, but actually adding a monitoring component that keeps real-time watch of your volunteers for criminal activity, basically. And so by adding monitoring, it's actually not very expensive, $8 to $10. You can add them to a list that if something were to change in the next 12, 24, 36 months, you can be automatically notified. And so the way that it works is there's literally a ticker, if you will, that's continuously monitoring 92% of the court systems in the United States. The gaps are in like Montana, North Dakota, and a few others, but the vast majority of arrests and county court informations are being monitored in real time, so that, let's say you did a background check on me yesterday and everything comes back clear, and then 3 weeks from now I get into an altercation and I go spend a night in jail, whatever happens. What's going to happen is once that opens up a case file, it's going to update the organization to let you know that there's been a new record. Where that's helpful for you is, and we have some clients that are already using this today, is even if it's not necessarily a disqualifying offense, it's something that is a really important counseling conversation that needs to happen. So we need to have a conversation around like, hey, I want to be, how can I help you? Like, what's going on in your life? Like, what led to this sequence of events? And now we can have an intelligent conversation around it. So this is one feature that has really changed a lot in the past few years. It's existed for a little bit, but it's becoming much more commonplace. And it doesn't require any extra disclosures or authorizations. It's 100% legal. When they give you permission to run the background check, it is in perpetuity. And so we consider it an evergreen authorization. You don't have to go and, get it every time, whatever. And so this is a really helpful tool. And we think of it this way. The background check is like looking in the rearview mirror. So you can see everything that's happened before.
Yeah.
Monitoring is like the windshield. So you can see what's coming. And if something were to happen, this gives you a lot more. It's not going to sit there unaddressed for 6 months, 12 months, 2 years before you run the next background check.
Mhm.
So it's a really nice feature that we recommend any and
I
all
would say one word: genius.
Yeah,
Yes.
it's excellent. I'd love to take credit for it, but it's not my tech. So
well, can you walk us through as well, just the ministry mobilizer? Because I know that is background checks, but then kind of so much more involved in that. Can you kind of unpack that for us?
yeah, absolutely. So the screenshot you're seeing on the top there, that's our system. So we kept it very clean, very easy. You log in, you can easily access and manage all of your records. You can see everyone who's had a background check done. It also included, and we recognize this very early on, that background checks, while they are an important piece of the puzzle, they're only a part of it. And so adding the child safety training course into the system is something that we wanted to do. We did it 15 years ago almost. So now you can order a background check and you can send a training video for your volunteers, all in an extremely, like, we don't monetize this very much. Like, we want to put it in the hands of our churches so that the volunteers are all looking for the same things. They're essentially all looking through the same sets of eyes. What are the red flags? What are the behaviors that we need to be aware of? And to Becky, your question in there, this can show you, hey, when did this training video get sent? Have they watched it yet? Is it pending? Are they halfway complete? When are they due for a rescreen, or when do they need to renew it? So the system can actually track all of that for you. So we wanted to make this really intuitive. We just went through a refresh about a year ago of the UI, and we're going through some more UI UX stuff over the next 6 to 12 months. So we're excited about the continued development and improvement of the system itself. So that, yeah, you're right. That's called Ministry Mobilizer. That is our Protect My Ministries proprietary platform. If you don't know, the other thing that's really great about Protect My Ministry is we integrate with almost every other CHMS out there. So we love Amplify, we love Simple Church, we love Fellowship One. We own and maintain and build a ton of great church management tools where we all live and breathe in these systems all day, every day, right? So we manage groups, we manage giving, we do calendars and scheduling and all the things. We can also do background checks. So it's really nice to go into somebody's profile, click order background check. That sends the request over to Protect My Ministry. We can then we can do the background check, and the results go right back into your church management system. So if you're using any of those platforms, it's awesome because you don't have to log into a third-party platform like ours. You can use the one that you're already using day in and day out. Click a button, get your check, click a button, view the results. No muss, no fuss. So we wanted to make it easy. We wanted it to be something that churches could take advantage of simply. And it doesn't cost extra to use it. It's literally just pay as you go and make it very simple and clean.
Well, and I love that, right? Because again, the goal is not for ministry leaders to become background checks experts, to become tech experts, all that stuff. It's to make these tools simple so they're really powerful, really effective, and ultimately help people spend more time in ministry, more time loving, serving, pouring into kids, leading them further and further to Jesus. So I love that. Now, I would love to just kind of toss it over to Josh now as well and hear just about a little bit more about lead ministry. I know there's so much that you're doing. There's so many resources and ways that you're helping and serving church leaders. So can you kind of just walk us through a little bit of that?
Yeah, Lead Ministry is a learning platform. We have on-demand courses, we have one-on-one coaching, and we're seeking to help the local leaders to get organized, stop the revolving door of volunteers, to help you prevent ministry burnout. So we have, at this time, 11 full-length courses for everything from how to run events that don't kill you and don't kill your team, how to recruit, train, retain, and multiply yourself in ministry. So we've taken basically like the biggest pain points or the things that were the greatest hampering of my life as a ministry leader, and we've created scores of online accessible training through these courses, and then of course through some one-on-one coaching. The interesting thing, however, is that in under a month, like one of our biggest releases ever is called lead security.
Yep.
And lead security there's literally nothing like it in the country. As a matter of fact, gentlemen, today, if you were to go to leadsecurity.com, it literally went live today. You can't buy it yet today, but you could at least explore it. And so lead security, 63 different videos. Ryan is a part of this course himself. We do a super deep dive into background checks and more. It is truly what I call the DFY. Now, gentlemen, do you guys know what DIY means?
I do.
What is it?
Do it yourself.
Do it
Do it
yourself and
yourself.
sometimes mess it up.
Ain't nobody got time for that. And so what we do, we are called a DFY, a done for you resource, where all of the downloads, all of the ways and things that you would need to be an inviting church that is yet super secure. It covers every area of church security. And of course, we start with kids.
Yeah. No, that's fantastic. It's such a valuable resource, and there's so much here. And yeah, really highly encourage people to be checking that out and jumping into that. Now, we have some resources kind of as a result of our time today that we want to share with people. I'm actually going to hold off on sharing those because I do want to allow, we've done great on our time. So we do have some time for Q&A, and we've gotten a couple questions along the way. So I do just want to kind of throw these out to you all. Now, there was a specific one that I think is good to kind of talk about and clarify. Josh, you made a comment in talking about some of the communication, some of the kind of policies, expectations about, hey, we're not going to give full frontal hugs with children, that sort of thing. And someone asked, now, would that be no frontal hugs with older kids as well of the opposite sex? How have you kind of seen that handled in your time?
I got to be completely honest. This actually is for any and everybody. We had an individual, and I won't go into this too deep, but yes, we ran a background check with him. That background check came back completely fine. Why? Because he was a professional lurking pedophile in our midst. There was a predator in our midst, and he was given all kinds of hugs to junior high boys, and he was systematically grooming them. And it was not the background check on this particular case. Why? Because he was a professional. What it was instead was the keen eye of our good people and the gift of the Holy Spirit to cause our eyes to go, something's just not right there, which then caused us to have other conversations. And so I think it's extremely important that your policy fits everybody and not just, hey, we don't want men hugging girls, or we don't want ladies hugging boys. No, we live in a completely different era, in a completely different age. And it was our policies and the good eyes of our good people that said, something doesn't smell right there. Can you look into that? And it didn't take long. And it was a very, very, very bad situation that we were able to nip in the bud, and nothing bad happened. But it was extremely nefarious. And do I say that for shock? I don't say that for shock. I say that for a dead ringer reality.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate you sharing that. And yeah, it's some of this conversation is sobering, right? And there is that responsibility as leaders to be aware of those things and be aware of the things that certainly are no fun to think about or talk about, but are really important for creating that culture of safety that I know, the church leaders on today want to create. Now, there's another question here, just in regard to protect my ministry. Ryan, I'm going to throw this one to you. Again, if you just kind of Google background checks, there's a lot of different options, a lot of things out there. And, from those who aren't in it might go, well, these are all kind of the same. But what makes Protect My Ministry different and unique in how we're serving churches?
That's a good question. So I think I've been here now for long enough to see the evolution of when I started 17 years ago calling churches around background screening. There was a lot of, background. I don't know what you're talking about. Probably half the phone calls were people who just were like, I don't understand that. We're not doing that. We know everybody, whatever, we're good. Now that very, very rarely happens. We're aware of it. And so churches know the needs, they understand the needs and requirements. Church insurance companies that we partner with, like Brotherhood Mutual and Guide One, and those, they require it. So, and they usually recommend us and others like that. What separates us is we've been doing this for churches now since 2005. We work with 8 of the 10 largest churches in the country. We speak the language, we understand the needs of the church better than the vast, vast, vast majority of other what are called consumer reporting agencies, aka a background check company. It's surprisingly not that hard to spin up a background check company. Get a nice slick website, hook into a data provider, partner with a platform. You could spin something up in a month or two. That doesn't mean that it's done correctly. And that's a matter of what kind of background check should I be doing? For what role should I be doing them? How often? Like, and it's the difference between having a company that will sell you a product versus having a partner that will give you a consultation, that will help you, like, guide you through a process and give you a recommendation and give you a path that you can trust and believe is true and accurate. And it's not just because, everybody's out here trying to make a buck. Yes, we got to keep the lights on. Of course, we're not a nonprofit.
Sure.
Yes, all that stuff is well and good. But really the difference in my mind is we have a heart to see churches be successful, be safe, and do things the right way. And that really is a company distinctive that, having done this long enough, I've seen a lot of other places come and go where that's not always the case. So, how you do things differently, the nuts and bolts, that there's a lot there between having opening filters. I will say this one other thing. We own more of the process than 99% of the background check companies out there. And what I mean by that is we own our own data. So literally the data that we provide, we own it. And so we're not just getting it from a third-party database. Right. We own it. We have our team of scrapers. We own Ministry Mobilizer, which is the platform. We own the integrations between Protect My Ministry and the church management software. We also have our own research team. So we're not outsourcing things to India or offshore for research or customer service. Everything is US local based. So we have infinitely more control over the product from start to finish compared to what's normal in the industry.
We're also big deal. All of my years, we made the exclusive decision. We did not look back. It was Protect My Ministry exclusively. And we were an early adopter too. I remember when I told you when we started, and you're like, dang, that's right about when we first started. So we never look back, man, and find the right thing and keep going.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we do have one more question, Josh. I'd love to throw your way. I think we talk a lot about here's what you should do. Here's what you should do. That's great. There's a lot to instruct, but sometimes there's things we don't even think about. So what's one thing that a lot of churches, in your opinion, are not doing now that they should prioritize moving forward in regard to safety?
That's going to be a very simple answer. And that simple answer is yes, you should do background checks. However, you should have cameras. And those cameras can be very, very, very inexpensive. And there's 3 types of cameras. We cover this all in the lead security kind of platform. Number 1, there are overt cameras that are overtly seen, and they have maybe even a red blinking light. It is quite clear that this camera is capturing something. Then you have covert cameras, and those are cameras that are not abundantly seen. They're not able to be seen, but also from a dollars and cents standpoint, you can have what's called dummy cameras. And those dummy cameras can be placed, and it's like, dang, I'm on camera, but you're actually not. And so we have a really simple step-by-step plan that you're like, hey, we got this many dollars that we can invest, and we can, these things take time. But I would say, especially in your children's ministry area, because guess what? It does 2 things. Number 1, it stops an inappropriate accusation. We actually now have video evidence, and that's actually quite important these days. However, it puts predators absolutely on their heels. This is not a place to tinker and fool with. So I think that this is becoming more and more. Now, I have to give a quick disclaimer. and we cover this extensively in the lead security training, and it's this: you have to know your state laws.
Yep.
Even as something as simple as a camera, you need to make sure what your state laws are and your state regulations. And it's not that hard to find, but I think that after you have your background check secure and you're either on the continuous monitoring schedule or you're on an every year monitoring schedule, the next logical step would be cameras.
Yeah. That's fantastic. Well, just so appreciate you both sharing your expertise today. Now, we do have some resources coming to everybody here today. Again, a recording of this, the slide deck, those will be coming your way. But we also have a link to download the background checks and screenings section of the Guide to Healthy Church Operations. This is a brand new ebook, the Guide to Healthy Church Operations, that we've released. That is just a massive resource. It goes actually far beyond just background checks and screenings into every area of church operations, and really takes our 40 years of experience, ours being Ministry Brands, serving the church, as well as some experts in church operations, combines those together to make this guide for you. So you're going to have a link to download that will be emailed to you, as well as the background check blueprint. Again, an ebook that you can dive into to kind of understand what does the world of background checks look like, and how can we utilize those as a part of our safety culture at our church. And then also a link to get some eyes on what we've been talking about with Protect My Ministry. And so you'll actually have a chance to get a demo. Somebody from our team would love to walk you through and actually spend some time looking at just some of those screenshots that you saw to see what all it can do. What is Ministry Mobilizer? How does this integrate with church management software? And really walk you through, again, how simple we've created it, ultimately to help you, your church, your ministry, to provide that culture of safety. So these will be coming your way. Watch your inbox for those. We are so thankful that you're with us today. We hope that this has been helpful, and really hope that you're walking away understanding what it looks like to create a safe environment at your church, as well as having some takeaways, some things immediately that you can do, some action steps that you can take to help increase that culture of safety. So thanks so much for being with us today. We'll be sending these things out to you shortly. And as always, we hope that this has been helpful in empowering your church to continue to grow as a healthy church. So thanks so much for being with us.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Scott, for leading. Appreciate it, man.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.